All right, guys, we're back here in the land of Coruscant, where we're here to talk about the Acolyte episode 3 from Disney Plus. Okay, so the Acolyte episode 3, which I once again don't know the title of because they don't release it early, is a flashback episode that shows us how Osha and Mae basically got to the current trajectory that they're in. And what I mean by that is it's 16 years prior. Osha and Mae are part of this coven of witches. The main witch, of course, is played by Jodie Turner-Smith. And it's weird, to be fairly honest. I've always known about the Witches of Dothamir. That is a very big Dave Filoni kind of creation in a lot of respects. But there's another coven of witches and another planet. It's like, okay, I guess you're creating more witches now. It's just like 100 years prior shouldn't have a lot of like progression when it came to these types of characters, these types of races and stuff like that. But here we are. We have two individuals, Osha and Mae, as young kids. They're being trained to become new witches of this planet. There's a lot of stuff that is seen with like use of the Force and how they use the Force, how they can project like force fields and stuff like that. It's very much, if you've seen what witches of Dothamir can do, that's what these witches are. And it's also a way for the two actresses who are also twins, the two young girls who are playing Osha and of course Mae, show the conflict between the two of them. Show how Mae is a much more darker entity than Osha is. Osha is much more lighthearted, much more light sensitive, and when it comes to like the Force and kind of their logical thinking, but they're also fighting with one another. They're young kids, they fight, that's what they do. But it also is a point where we find out that Jodie Turner-Smith is the kind of surrogate mother, and then they have another mother who I think is played by Margarita Lavieva, or however you say her last name. I apologize. They are in a relationship, and they kind of like it's almost like a immaculate conception in a lot of respects, kind of like, I guess you could say. But the biggest thrust of the story is how Mae came to hate the four Jedi that she's on the quest to kill, and basically what ends up happening is these four Jedi appear, and they're there because they've been scouting out the fact that these two young girls are being transported to the Witch Coven initiative, and they try to intervene. But if these these two young girls are force sensitive, they have to be given the Jedi test. Well, Mae doesn't really want to be a Jedi, but Osha is very convinced by Saul giving her the lightsaber to look at. Carrie-Anne Moss's Indara gives the warning that the Republic do not allow kids to be integrated into the witches or any type of kind of cult-like group. But I hate to say it, the Jedi are a cult-like group. So this has been my always problem with the Jedi ever since I kind of, with the prequel era and the stuff you learn about with the Jedi seeming to be not very smart, to be fairly honest. I understand Saul's like passion to the Jedi Order, and he talks to Osha and Mae about, or at least he talks to Osha about what the Jedi can handle, what they can do. But the Jedi take kids from a very small age. They never see their family again. They are bound by law. They can't reproduce. They are basically peacekeepers, but they're actually police force of the galaxy, and it's a huge problem, to be fairly honest. It's not this episode's problem, but it is showing what the problem with the Jedi Order is, and that is my biggest qualm with the Jedi Order. I almost feel like the Sith is in a much more, as crazy as Palpatine is, the Sith ideology and logic, and I'm not saying it's always right, but their ideology and logic is much more sound, much more realistic, and a lot less restrictive in a lot of respects. So watching the Jedi, watching how Kanaka, watching how Tobin, watching how Indara speak, it's a very disturbing thing. Tobin takes a blood sample from Mae. That's really disturbing, to be fairly honest. Why are you taking a blood sample of kids? I know it's a midichlorian thing, which they won't actually specify now because it's such a taboo topic. But the Jedi Order and the Jedi training, as cool as it sounds, it is a very simplified life that has a lot of issues, and you see it here. Saul can say whatever he wants, but he's manipulating Osha, thanks to the Jedi Order, to do certain things, and therefore Osha and Mae become very conflicted with one another. Mae ends up trying to kill Osha, and it becomes a thing where you watch a descent into madness. Everybody in the witch coven, who I don't know if I agree with, like the witches of Dothamir or stuff like that, but they are, because they go and work for the Empire, which is another problem. They ruin a two twins' lives, and I think it's either Tobin or Indara say something bad about twins, like it's a problem. But it makes you realize how flawed the Jedi Order truly is, and how easily manipulative they are when Palpatine takes over. And that's what I get out of this episode, is just how manipulative the Jedi Order is. So you actually feel for May when she actually destroys. I don't think she does it on purpose because she's a young kid, but when she basically destroys the witch temple on this planet, and the two young girls end up thinking each one of another is killed in the assuming blast that happens. And that's a really crazy thing, because you never really think about it until you get to like the nuts and bolts of what Star Wars is, which is a very flawed, not in the sense of the storytelling, but a very flawed universe that does really flawed things when it comes to like the specific orders, and how a subset, because this is because Jedis are in essence based off like samurai ninjas and stuff like that, that you see how flawed that creed. But once again, Saul, who is the Jung-jae character, he's a very stoic, very kind of, he's thought-provoking when he talks. He's a character that really is trying to do the best for these two young girls. And when Osha, who is trying to protect, or May, who's trying to protect her sister, tells Osha to lie, when they do the thing where the force sensitive ability young kids or younglings or whatever have to figure out what's on the screen, and she's lying what's on the screen, and Soul knows this. So when she kind of messes up, he's like, "Oh, why are you doing this? Are you trying to get out of it?" And she's like, "Yeah, I am." And I really appreciate that kind of stuff. I think it's a fascinating episode to what cult-like statuses can be. And that's always been, like I said, with Star Wars, the nature of like the Empire, the Jedi, and stuff like that. But it also gives us a really interesting look into two characters who are very conflicted with one another, but also put in that perspective because of the witches, who are not in their own right a good organization. They're basically manipulating into like a nun-style world, but they're also manipulating these two young girls to do things that they don't want to do. And instead of, giving Osha the option of what she wants to do, but the mother, who's played by, I think it's Margarita Lavieva, she is very against Osha taking this Jedi challenge or this Jedi training because of what it entails. And I understand, but once again, she's doing the exact same thing with the witches thing, which is a problematic thing in its own right, and I find that really interesting. But this episode, once again, it's showrun by Leslie Headland, and it's directed by Kogonada, who did After Yang. So if you've seen that, you kind of realize why they brought him into this episode. But overall, just to kind of conclude the episode, I really, really did enjoy it. I know a lot of people didn't enjoy this series, which is kind of interesting because, the stuff like the Book of Boba Fett wasn't well received. It seems to be a trend. Either people are just kind of hating on it. They hate on it because how kind of weak the Disney Star Wars franchise has been since they bought it. But I think if I look personally as a Star Wars fan, I think it's a pretty decent series. I think it works for a very low-key, toned-down type of Star Wars content. And I think the action sequences are pretty good. I mean, there's not a lot here. And yes, it does feel like a very stretched out 90-minute movie. But I don't think the characters are bad. I think there's enough here that's interesting. It gives us a backstory of these two individuals, Osha and May. And if this is a one season, one and done type of situation, I think it did a pretty nice job. It's not like the Book of Boba Fett where we have 2 or 3 episodes, which are clearly Mandalorian episodes. This actually gives us real content, and I found that really refreshing in a lot of respects. So overall, I'm going to give this episode 3 for my final thoughts I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I really did like it. Once again, I don't know how people are going to feel about it. Like I said, they didn't really care for the first 2 episodes, outside of a couple people I know. But I think it's a pretty good show, to be fairly honest. So that's just how I feel. But anyways, with that said, that's going to be my take on episode 3 of The Acolyte, now premiering on Disney+. Check it out. Let me know in the comments below what you think of it overall. Did you like it? Did you not like it? If you didn't like it, it is what it is. But, if you liked it, tell me why. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell top to find what's coming next. If you liked the video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.